What's up, new Fighting Order fans? We back like the Juggernaut bitch. We're here in segment 2, and we're talking about the Xbox One features that were somewhat explored at the San Diego Comic-Con. Now, before we get started, I wanted to add something before I give Demizzle the floor. Now, everybody knows that the DRM has been reversed on the Xbox One. Good job. Even though it wasn't something that Microsoft was willingly doing, they already saw that the pre-order sales were getting freaking trashed against the PlayStation 4. So they figured, hey, let's listen to the fans. And all of a sudden, you see like a steep turnaround, and they're actually picking up some pre-orders. Fine. Now, it's almost as if, out of spite, they took away the features to play games from, the always online or whatever. I have an alibi argument for that. Now, I believe if people wanted to have the choice to have their system always online so that they can go to their buddy's house to play their games, they should have had the option to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to leave my Xbox One on, since they wanted it to be always online. Then, let's say I go to Shinwar's
Right.
house with my Xbox One on. I should be able to log into my profile, and it can say, hey, you know what? Do you want to play this game on your system? Say yes. And for the time being, disable it while I'm at my friend's house, and still be able to play that game and still have access to my library without it being forced on me. Okay? I took
Wow.
I took that and I thought about it. I said, you know what? Microsoft did that to be vindictive and spiteful. That was a good feature. A good feature, but it was forced on us. Give us the option. Hey, if I leave my 360 on, I go to Shinwar's house, or I go to Onyuni's house, and I want to play what was installed onto my drive, I should still be able to do that. And it doesn't always have to be online. Because if I take that same system to Afghanistan, where I'll be in October, I can still use it offline, you know? So that's one thing, Microsoft, you did the right thing, but they went too far with it. Because the system, we already know, is still able to do that. But hopefully, Microsoft, Major Nelson, Larry Herb, or anyone of importance, if you hear this, hopefully that you can institute that later on. It can't be an all or nothing thing, you know? But Demiso,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that, and then just the Xbox features with, like, for instance, Killer Instinct? You can have the Connect camera, and it'll recognize your face, your button layout, and all that. That'll be yeah. I mean, a lot of great features are coming out for the system. I just hope that Microsoft is smart with how they implement them. But what are your thoughts?
I'm in. I agree with you to an extent. Like, yeah, like the always online should have been an option instead of forced on to gamers, because I think people would have been more receptive to it if it was an option and not like requirement out of the gate before they reverse their position on the DRM.
Yeah.
But I understand where they're coming from. It is like you can either have it this way or that way, because if you have it both ways, it's going to take up more resources, because always online takes up resources, and having it not be online but having certain features also takes up resources. So it's a matter of either or. But I do agree with you that if it was an option instead of a requirement out of the gate, it wouldn't have gotten as bad of press as it did. But now moving on to the features, I do like people are complaining about, like, oh, I don't like the Connect camera, I don't like camera being on all the time, and I'm like, there's this special feature that they included. It's called off. You can use it. It's like, even though the Connect has to be plugged in order for you to use the system, it doesn't have to be on in order for you to use the system. It's just, and people want to make a mountain out of a molehill, like out of nothing, literally. Like, just turn the damn thing off. It's not that big of a.
Yeah, they even said
But I do like,
that you can turn it off. You go in and turn it off. It's they said it from day one.
you know,
They said it from day one. Unbelievable. All right, go ahead,
That's
B.
that's why I said that's why I said there's this special feature called off that a lot of people are neglecting to realize that the thing has. But as I was saying, I do like the recognition features that they're starting to tout with it and show that it actually works, especially with the button layout, because you have no idea how many times I go over my friends' houses and they have their controller set to a certain thing, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta go into the options and I gotta set my controller up to do this, that, and the other, and it takes a little bit. So now, if I want to just go over a friend's house or they come over here, they'll see like, oh, that's not Dave, that's so and so, and he has an Xbox One, and he likes his buttons this way, so we're just gonna automatically configure his buttons like this, and we can play without having to disrupt anything, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
Another thing that I read about is the Ubisoft people that make Rainbow Six. Whereas before, like you could take a picture with your Kinect and implement it into the game, but now with the new Kinect on the Xbox One, it'll actually allow you to 3D map your entire head onto a character
That's
model,
right.
complete complete with facial animations. So that's gonna be hot. And like you can even scan your own body into the game, like your actual BMI and everything, and have it be a character
Hey.
model in the game. So I'm like, wow, that's great stuff. The and another thing that uh, they talked about was the self-publishing for indie developers. And
Mm-hmm.
before at E3, they were like, well, we think we want indie developers to work out a publishing deal with third-party developers and or either us, Microsoft, and we'll put out their game, but they got a lot of backlash from the independent developer scene. So they're like, you know what? We're going to allow you to self-publish. And on top of that, instead of having to buy a $5,000, $10,000 dev kit, we're going to allow our retail consoles to be dev kits.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's a real boost to the independent development scene because a lot of indie developers don't have $5,000-$10,000 to go out and buy a dev kit, but they can go out and buy a regular Xbox One and have it be their dev kit, which is a great thing.
Yep. And Dave,
So kudos to Microsoft on
can I
that.
add something to that? The average cost of a dev kit, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like you have to be like a studio raking in some money. So if you're only paying like $500 for a dev kit, and you can put it into like a debug mode, like we saw that year we went to Comic Con, how we were playing the beta version of the Kinect, and you saw all the debug and all that, the inner workings with the
Oh yeah.
programs and stuff, and then switch it back, and then you're actually playing the game that you designed on that system. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And then the fact that Microsoft is now removing so many fees, like with updating games and all this other stuff, I think that is actually good. What you might see new independent studios starting to do some stuff. Plus, you got the fact that Kickstarter, you may have a lot of new, fresh blood coming into development. So kudos, like the Mizzle said, to
It all
Microsoft for doing that.
with them removing the fees to update, it now opens the door for a lot of MMOs to come on Microsoft system and a lot of free to play games to come on Microsoft system as well. Because as you know, those games are constantly updating,
Yep.
and it won't force them to come out of their pockets to pay for updates. So that's a good thing as well.
Okay. Okay. Now let's give Onion some time. What are your thoughts on just how the new features, or we're not touching all in detail, but just in general, what do you think um, is happening with the directions of these new features, Chris?
They're doing a lot of good things, a lot of innovative things, especially with the Kinect camera. You guys already went over most of the points where it recognizes you on the fly. I tend to be a little bit paranoid. I'm tending to think that some other publishers and whatnot will say, "Oh, you got 4 people watching this movie? Pay the fuck up!" That sort of nonsense. They're going
Well,
to be able to
there was
track individual
rumors.
faces. Oh, this.
There was rumors that like with
Yeah.
Netflix and stuff or like pay-per-views, that new Connect is so advanced that it would have picked up how many people are in the room and charge you like admissions fees. That's was the rumor. I don't know if there's still any
Wow. Oh.
validity to that. And then I mean, that Connect sensor is good and it's bad. I mean, hell, you could use it within 5 meters of your of the sensor. You could use it in the dark. I mean, it's some good things, but some bad things in the same right too. And I can
So
understand.
you can use it in the dark.
Yep.
You can use it in the dark, Alex. You won't have any more
Shut the
problems.
hell up. Okay, I know where you're going with this because all right, new Fighting Order fans. There was a time where I was trying to use my Connect in my apartment when I was living in Plainfield, and the Connect had a problem picking me up in my room. So, naturally, on your knees, an anomaly had freaking jokes like, "Yeah, because you're too black." Ha 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 ha. Okay, at least now, at least now the new
Dang.
Connect, there's no excuse, and so you know what? Flip you the bird, and you continue.
Hey, you're the one that went that
Darkness.
deep, man. I was just gonna throw it.
Oh, darkness for real.
Darkness is
Go have
spreading.
sex with Charlie Murphy.
Darkness, brothers, darkness.
Oh my goodness, I'm Rick James. But in general, final thoughts on this particular topic. Shinwar, what are your overall thoughts on Microsoft's direction with the features, opening up the console for indie developers, and just should they have completely taken the always online thing without giving us an option? What are your thoughts?
I think they should have definitely given us an option. I did like the feature of just leaving the game on the hard drive and not having the disk in there and let me just switch whenever. But I do understand, the legalities and all that stuff behind it with the DRM. The new features, yeah, the Connect thing, that is pretty cool. But like Dave said, just turn it off. But honestly, if it was up to me, I really don't care for a Connect. It really doesn't do anything for me. But they're basically forcing me to have it, and I have to have it in order for the Xbox One to work. So whatever. Um, what else? Oh, the dev kit. That's cool. I think that's cool. For the developers, definitely cheaper. It just looks like Microsoft is really trying to save, but they should have did all this stuff from the beginning, man.
Mhm.
But honestly, and I think me and Demizu talked about this yesterday. Not really trying to shift the focus, but we haven't heard anything from Sony in regards to their features from the PS4.
I mean, they're very
And
vague.
Microsoft is really hitting hard with it. So
Mhm.
right, they're very vague. But I think at the end of the day, I even before this whole change of what they were doing with the Xbox One, I was still in support of it. So I'm still excited, but at the end of the day, the Connect. I really don't want one. I really don't need one, but Microsoft is forcing me to have one. So
Now,
that's all.
before I give to Mizzle the floor, now those of you who, if you really look at it, Sony is not really going the route of the whole PlayStation Eye and all that. It doesn't seem like they're pushing it too much anymore.
Mm,
But if you factor out the price, it's pretty much going to be the same cost. It's just Microsoft is bundling the Kinect in the system, whereas
yeah,
if somebody chooses to get the PlayStation Eye and all that, it's going to cost the same thing. It's just that Sony took it out. I mean, Sony did the
yeah,
right
but
thing
but
by
they have an
allowing
option
options.
though.
Yes, Sony allowed
Yeah,
option. You know what I mean? Like Microsoft forcing it like that, that's no bueno because
Yeah.
they could at least brought the price down $100. You know what I mean? Because I think that's
yeah,
the last thing consumers are complaining about. Because if the Connect and the $100 more than the PS4 wasn't a factor, I'm telling you, the Xbox One and the PS4 are on level playing ground. All those fanboys were like, "Oh well, this and that, blah blah blah." There's nothing they can say, nothing they can bitch and whine and it be unreasonable about. That's the last thing. But it all comes down to your preference at this point, because Microsoft took away the DRM, which was they're trying to crucify themselves But there you go. But Demizo, what are your final thoughts on the features and the option that they should have had a little bit of the always online, or allow you to leave your system on, go somewhere else, have access to your system. You know what I mean? But yeah, what are your final thoughts?
Like I'm gonna focus on the Connect since I pretty much said what I wanted to say about the features and everything. But my final thoughts on the Connect is like I understand where and the PSI as well. I understand where Sony and Microsoft are trying to go. Like you can tell what their direction is by what they're doing. Like Sony's like, okay, we're gonna have it be an option. We're not gonna push it, but we're gonna have stuff that is compatible for it. So in case you do want to pick it up, it's there for you. Whereas Microsoft, they're like that's the future where they want to go. That's where they want their console to head. Like so, even if you don't want right now, it's pretty much saying to developers, hey, don't be afraid to develop for the Kinect because everybody has one. It's standard with our console. So you don't have to worry about people not having it. You don't have to worry about your game not being able to reach a lot of people because they don't have this peripheral.
Yeah.
Because now everybody has one. The system is even required to have it in order for it to work. So there's no excuse for nobody not to have one. So you can essentially be worry free if you want to develop something for the Kinect. Whereas if a developer wants to make something for a PlayStation Eye, you have to like, okay, how many people have it? Is it going to be worthwhile developing? Do we have to include an alternate control scheme? There's just so many variables, whereas the Kinect is like, okay, we want to create a Kinect-only game because we know everybody has one. It removes a lot of the confusion, in my opinion.
Okay, good points, as well. And on your knees, what are your final thoughts on this topic with the features?
Yeah, so it's one thing of all the Kinect good. My understanding is that PlayStation dropped their camera just so they could beat the Xbox on price. Because if PlayStation had it, just like you said, it'd be the same price.
Yeah.
So just one thing to watch out for. Depending on how useful those features are going to be for most games, it has yet to be seen because they were making a big deal out of Kinect and that bombed rather horribly. But it's good. It's supposed to be able to do a lot more. We'll see what happens. In terms of the other stuff, they're going in the right direction. They're mostly playing catch up to Sony in a lot of regards, but they're making a lot of the right moves, and most of the fear about their nonsense that was at E3 is pretty much gone now. They seem to attack almost every point, except for maybe that. My understanding is the PS4 will still support remote playing of your games. So Xbox has to come up with a way to do that now since they decided to put the kibosh on that. I don't think they're doing it to be spiteful. I just think they fear piracy a lot more than they probably should.
Well, you know what? Like I said, the way that I described that they should attack it, I think that's how Sony's going to do it. And Microsoft should have no excuse because the system was designed for that feature to be there. So I think down the line it might resurface, but we'll see. We'll see. So, New Fighting Order fans, this has been our second segment. Now, those of you who want, you comic book fans, come back for the last and final part of this podcast because it's going to get interesting. So, I will see you next time on the podcast if you're going to cut out early. And please join us for our comic book session on segment number 3. And we'll see you next time. Peace.